Now you, like me and like the majority of people, grew up in a universe where Aunt May was a hideous harpy.
Oh yeah.
But now we live in a universe where Aunt May's like smoking hot. And just on a side note, Marissa Tomei aging like fine wine.
Yeah, she's pretty old too.
Yeah, she's ancient.
You know, people are saying like, "Why is Aunt May so young?" She's pretty old.
Yeah, she's ancient. She's a literal mummy, but she's still smoking hot.
Mm.
But on top of that, here's the real mind-breaking illusion. As hot as she is, the person with the hottest ass in this movie is Spider-Man.
Dude.
What the hell's going on?
He's got that freaking mad biscuit.
Yeah, putting James Charles' fucking humongous donkey dong.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. I don't mean his dick. I mean his donk. Apparently that's a mythological truth now.
Yeah.
That's right, a mythological truth.
What the hell, dude?
Anyway, Spider-Man is gifted in the ass area.
Yeah.
This is one of the lessons we learned when we watched Spider-Man Far From Home. That's what it's called, right? Yep. Anyway, it took us 1,000 years. Look, man, at this point with the MCU, everybody's seen them. Nobody wants to hear what we think about them.
Yeah.
So we're not keeping up with them until way later. So we barely just saw this. And by the time you see this, it'll probably be like 7,000 years since we saw it. So this is the post-Endgame offering that the MCU had. Just off the top here, before we get into discussing with spoilers and all that junk, just discussing the movie like we do. What's your takeaway, and would you recommend somebody see this?
Yeah.
My takeaway is this. Half of it, stinky! The other half, all right. And at this point with the MCU, you just gotta watch them. I mean, it's not even a choice anymore. That's the trick of the MCU. They could literally have 2 hours of James Charles himself squeezing out a fresh Duke
Damn.
on a bridge, and you'd be like, damn, I gotta see it, because then, like, if Doctor Strange pops up, you know what I'm saying?
Opens a portal into
his bunghole, you know, then you miss something essential. So that's the thing. So we're gonna talk about this fucking movie. Everybody's seen it by now, so if you're not used to our conversations, of course there's gonna be 1,000 spoilers. So if you happen to have not seen it by now, what? You're clearly us. But anyway, let's talk about this fucking movie, man. I just gotta point out I have a lot of negatives for this movie. I loved the first one, which you didn't. You were like okay with it, I guess.
Yeah.
This one, I started hating this motherfucking thing the moment it played. I abhorred this movie for a large portion of the beginning. I was like, this is a disaster. It's horrendous. Nothing was hitting right except for the characters. The characters do the things that the characters are supposed to do. Like, Peter is Peter. Granted, the situations are not very much like the comics, but the characters are, at their core, what they should be, which is fine. I like that. It's just the whole... The comedy was so heavy-handed and unfunny that I was like, this is atrocious. I couldn't stand it, dude, for the first good chunk of this movie. Another thing that I couldn't stand was that, look, man, if you're a comic fan, you know Mysterio is going to be the bad guy. So they set this thing up like, a
swerve.
A swerve, and you're like, I mean, it's so evident what's going on. And I'm talking like the whole fucking plan, basically. Yeah. And, barring the finer details. I was like, I already know what's going on. Just get to it already. It just felt like an interminable amount of time being spent in a situation that I hated, waiting for a thing that I already knew was going to happen. So I don't know how that played for people that don't know who Mysterio is. Maybe it played better for them. But for me, I was like, oh, God damn it. And that's not even knocking Mysterio. I think Jake Gyllenhaal did a good job. I think the way they approached the character was at the very least interesting. I just think, in terms of the context of the movie, I was like, damn. Woo! It stinks. Then I noticed it was your feet. Scrub them bad boys, because it was more entertaining than when I was watching.
I need to wash my socks.
Yeah, it's not good.
Keep reusing them.
Sick. So yeah, man, there was just so much going on that didn't feel like it belonged in a Spider-Man movie. Just the fact that it was not in the United States was a thing.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel
I think the first half just feels like Tom Holland's vacation in Europe.
Yeah, and not an entertaining one. And then the characters aren't cool or entertaining enough in the situations they're being put in. You know what I'm saying? Now we do have here Spider-Man, in that classic Spider-Man dilemma of trying to have a life but choosing to be responsible. So that's good. That they kept to the classic Spider-Man themes is good. It's just the situation they put him in didn't feel Spider-Man-y. And on top of that, for me, it wasn't an entertaining thing to watch. I was just like, what is this, man? This is assholes. And the comedy really just, I was like, you got to stop with this. This is horribly unfunny to me.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I may be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm pretty sure that this movie lost two of the writers from the first movie, which were the guys that did like Game Night and all that stuff.
Right.
So I'm gonna credit them with
For
the good comedy in the first movie.
Yeah, because and again, we've seen worse comedy in the MCU, but there was just so much of it.
Yeah,
here.
it really was.
Like nonstop. And then there was a point in the movie, and this is later in the movie, but I noticed it earlier. Peter Parker keeps disappearing to the point where you're like, all right, this is just a fucking issue now. Like, how do people not notice? Of course, that's like a subplot, But then literally the resolution to that was, let's just make a joke of it, and somehow that's okay. That, somehow the teachers are okay that he's not there. Like, what? How the fuck is that a resolution to this long-running subplot of him vanishing? I thought that was lazy and lame, and then the joke on top of that was like, what? Okay, whatever. Anyway, those are some of the upfront. Oh, by the way, the score in this is so fucking busy that I was like, stop with the music! Stop! Soundtrack score, the whole 9 yards. I was like, dude, in the past, we've given Marvel a lot of flack for having limp scores for the most part. This wasn't a limp score, but it was just too much. Like, dude, can we have a moment of, like, respite in this fucking noise fest, please?
They also used that little Avengers thing.
Too much?
Way too much.
Yeah.
People just standing around in an airplane and then dun.
Yeah, like
why?
Right. So those are up front. Some of the things, and there's more, and we'll talk about as we go. Some of the things I didn't like, and mostly it's at the beginning portion of this movie, where it was just not working in a lot of ways. And I felt like it almost would, and then it would just go back and just destroy any good faith it had built up at that point. But what did you think going into this? As we were watching it at the beginning.
I kind of feel the same way. Maybe not to the extremes that you did, since apparently you hated. But it definitely wasn't meshing in the first half. It didn't lose me completely, but it was kind of like, where is this going? And I know what he is. Like you said, that's the big problem, is that they pimp out Mysterio like as a swerve, but you're like, I know this is low, and it's not well done to a point that it makes you kind of just forget the fact that it's Mysterio.
Yeah, I would have appreciated an actual swerve.
Yeah.
Because, they basically just gave you a different version of Mysterio. They hit all the right spots with Mysterio. If you're a Mysterio fan...
Oh, yeah. I should say... I gotta say that I'm not I'm a Mysterio hater.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't love the first one of these. And I hate Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, triple whammy.
Triple whammy.
But I gotta say, I liked Mysterio as a character. In fact, the moment he reveals his plot in the exposition diarrhea fest, which
dude, I was about to look. I thought that was just me.
Yes, but what the fuck was that?
It happens like a couple times with him.
Yeah.
To a point where I was like, dude, just call him Expositio.
Yeah, no shit. That was his real power. Anyway, when he revealed that moment, exposition fest aside, that's kind of when I kind of became a little bit more interested in the movie. Again, not because I was like, oh, I saw that coming a mile away, obviously, but I don't know. He was just an interesting character. The way they tackled him was interesting in the sense that it was loyal to the character. It kept the essentials of him. Yeah, the idea of this egotistical, whiny, big wiener.
Yeah.
With some talents, obviously, that he's exploiting for his own good. They kept those essentials there, yet delivered them in a slightly different package. And he just did a good job playing both sides. The good guy side and the bad guy side. So, I mean, when the guy that's Mysterio is the most interesting thing, I don't know what to think about it.
Yeah, I did actually kind of end up liking Mysterio, despite the fact that you're kind of like you said,
it's Mysterio.
Yeah, it's Mysterio. He sucks. But yeah, like just the fact that it's played that way is like, come on, man. I guess they assume that people aren't actual comic fans. They're just like, oh, it's the first time anyone's gonna see this.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's Mysterio.
Yeah, who cares? Other than Jim Sterling.
Now, I always say that some of the beginning action sequences where Mysterio's playing it up like a hero didn't hit for me. And I realize now in retrospect that it's because I just wasn't digging the movie. I was like, it's stinky. You know what I'm saying? So the action might have been fine. In fact, I'm sure it is. It just wasn't hitting for me. I sure as hell wasn't like, this action sucks. I was just like, whatever. And again, I'm almost 100% sure. I'm going to say 99.9% sure. I've never been here before. I'm going to say 99.9% sure that it was because I just knew where this fucking thing was going, that I was out of the action. But again, once the reveal was over, we got over that stupid hill. The action was really good in this. You can't take that away from this movie, that especially like the illusory scenes, you know, the hallucination, or not the hallucination, the projections and stuff. That shit was straight out of the comics. Yeah, that was real good shit.
That was actually really cool. I wish there was more of them. There's only like really 2 big ones.
Right.
But they do look cool. And yeah, I will say that the action is fine throughout. So maybe it was just they weren't into it. Because there's some cool scenes early on. It's just like, yeah, there's something off about the first half. I'll give you that.
Yeah, it just wasn't jibing for me, man. Now again, once it hit stride, I forgave a lot of the stuff that wasn't hitting it with me. But there was still some stuff that stood out. Like Spidey's trying to keep his identity under wraps, but he's everywhere unmasked.
Yeah,
just like straight up balls out unmasked, unmasking left and right. The whole world by the end of this movie knows who he is, basically. And then we get that, oh, by the way, now everybody knows who you are, stinger at the end. So it's like, whatever. Kind of everybody that's important to you as a viewer knew already, so who cares? I'm exaggerating, of course, but you know what I mean? Like, he was just flagrantly walking around without masks and come on, man, you put on a shitty mask, but you're still wearing the same outfit.
Yeah, he's still wearing the same outfit. That actually felt more like, man, we gotta hide this face so we don't have to animate this CG face.
Yeah,
so we just put this little mask on him. Because he's still wearing the same suit and has a backpack and everything.
Yeah. Now, there was a lot of attention paid to his little school chums. Again, this was a point of contention when the first one came out. The whole... they played it up like Zendaya wasn't Mary Jane, but then obviously she was. I was like, yeah, I like her. It's a different take on Mary Jane, like a more dour and sarcastic version of her. But the core essential of Mary Jane are still there. She's still like what Mary Jane should be. So here, Spider-Man's dilemma, of course, is that, or I should say Peter Parker's dilemma, is that he wants to pursue Mary Jane. The classic Spider dilemma. I do feel like, look, I realize that post-Civil War in the comics, Spider-Man was out there, he was outed to the world and stuff, but I do feel that in the MCU, they barely brought in Spider-Man, and now, he's like out there, like, the classic Spider dilemmas being seen through a different lens is interesting. It's just, in this particular movie, the whole time I was just thinking, man, like, some of this stuff is too soon, like, but we'll see. Maybe that's just me being nitpicky. I mean, it is me being nitpicky. We'll see where that goes. It's just the whole thing with the identity, dude. Might as well just walked around naked with a fucking body paint that says Peter is my name.
Yeah.
I
didn't really find a big problem with that. I do kind of feel at this point that maybe you should stop relying too much on Stark. Like, at what point is Spider-Man going to have his own villains? This is another one of... This is just one of Tony Stark's villains that's hating on Peter Parker. Or the result
of Tony Stark's foibles. Yeah.
And like, again, they take everything that, is Spidey and just credit it to Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Like, to the max in this one.
Now, it is fair to say... I think we should, if to anybody that hasn't seen it, I think they're making that effort. Obviously, the, so to speak, mantle of Iron Man is being in some form or another passed on to Peter here. That's one of the subplots. But even then, the presence of Iron Man is like overwhelming the presence of Spider-Man, which I think is where you're headed here. Yeah. To the point where you're like, all right, and I get it. I mean, he just died in this timeline. The ghost of Spider-Man looms heavily over this world. I get that. But yeah, it still seemed a little bit too much. Like, and maybe that's my big problem with the movie.
We get that this is part of the universe, dude. You don't have to.
Don't hammer it in.
Shoveling it in. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. And maybe that's the big problem with this movie. A lot of the things in here, good or not, are extra as fuck. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, all right, chill, man. Reel it back a little bit. There's no restraint in this movie. Everything's like blowing up in your face and, haha, look at this fucking joke 10,000 times in a row. The charm of certain gags especially like wears off pretty quick. Like, come on, dude. We get it. Like couples act like idiots around each other and it's cringy. And let's play that up 5 million times in a row to, really no punchline or result at the end that's functional. So, yeah, this movie in every field just goes the extra mile. But you don't need it to go the extra mile.
Yeah.
You're like, we got that. Like, the beginning.
There's, like, no real reason. Really no real reason when you think about it. For this not to be in America.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a background thing. But did they, like, go, like, every second. They're like, now we're here.
Yeah.
Look at all this. And you're like, but why? It's just a background.
Yeah, this could have been anywhere. And I get that in the first one... excuse me, they had a field trip to Washington, so I guess maybe they're trying to avoid that. But really, it just took the Spider-Man out of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It was a New York hero. And even he was like, dude, what is this? I just want to be...
Yeah.
I'm like a neighborhood Spider-Man. And I get that that's part of the theme, with him not believing in himself to be worthy of taking on the role of Tony Stark. Or rather, his responsibilities. The responsibility theme is strong in this, and I appreciate that. Again, though, it didn't need all this extra fluff. Yeah. It didn't need the Europe thing. It didn't need the explosions every fucking second or the overt comedy every fucking second. It could have been a much more subdued picture and achieved the same thing, I think, a lot better, to be honest with you. But anyway, give me something positive because it sounds like we're just ripping this thing apart. Hit me.
I think mostly the effects are great.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the better like swinging effects I've seen. That being said, early on, I just wanted to go into the negative real quick.
All right.
Early on, he's wearing the Iron Spider suit.
Yeah, it looks like ass.
He's got literally an M&M for a head. I was like, damn, homie, that freaking head's tiny.
It was so small.
What was that?
I think it's because of the shoulder things that he has, the shoulder pad-like things. It just emphasized the smallness of the head.
I guess. And there's a scene, like, of course, they bring back, like, the nano helmet thing again. Which, by the way, it's good to see that they're keeping up the tradition of having that effect look like complete caca.
Yeah, it's bad.
Somehow, dude, it looks worse than it did in all the other movies. Anyway, there's a point where he's got the mini M&M head. and he, like, unsheathes it, right? And somehow his head grows. You're like, you knew it was small! Why'd you make it so small?
Oh, man, it's so tiny.
There's also a scene later on in a bridge where he stands up and his upper body is like massive for some reason. I was like, damn, mommy! Yeah. That being said, I do want to praise the fact that they like toned down the smoothing effect on the suit that was like horrible in Civil War, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually looks more like the actual suit they built, especially when he has the black on him.
Yeah.
I thought the suit looked better in this.
When it comes to, like, final suit.
Yeah, the suit, especially because they didn't smooth it out too much, or if they did, it just looked better.
I agree. Jon Favreau was happy, makes a return here. I thought that was one of the better functioning parts of the comedy versus the majority of the other ones. Another thing that I liked comedy wise was the Flash Thompson stuff. I thought that worked pretty well. Ned, who I liked and you didn't in the first one, I just thought that subplot was shit.
Yeah.
Like, dude, what is this, man?
Glad.
That subplot was literally how I feel about being around a friend that's in a relationship. Like, I don't want to see this.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think that I would want to see that on the big screen? If you don't want to see it in real life and that's what's relatable about it, don't put it on the screen.
True though that may be, I was glad that he was in the movie a lot less. So there you go.
Yeah.
I hate his face. The guy looks like he's 65, but he's supposed to be a teen, and you're like, dude, you're 80!
Well, he's a fat guy in the movie, though. You should be happy representing.
Yeah, but homie, more lip than freaking gut. It's like, damn. Fix them face.
Yeah. It was not a welcome presence. The teachers, like,
yeah, that was
cringe,
bad,
man.
That was bad, yeah, and it's like throughout.
Yeah, like, and again, back to this shit. The teachers are the ones that are like, basically like, oh fuck Peter, at the end, like, yeah, he's gone. Like, they're the deciding. I can't let that go, dude. They drag this damn subplot along, this running gag, if you will, of him disappearing, and the payoff is, you know, some dismissive, sarcastic comment from MJ, and then everybody's like, okay,
yeah,
what? He's still gone. Why?
I guess, dude.
It sucked. It was so lazy. Like, that's your resolution?
Yeah, I do feel that there was also another one of those points where they were like, oh shit, we need to like explain this with Nick Fury. Like, at the end, they're like, oh, this is why he was so incompetent in this movie.
Yeah.
They're like, come on, man, really?
Let's talk about that, you know, that we have, of course, a mid-credit sequence and a end-credit sequence. A mid-credit sequence revealing that the exploits of Mysterio weren't as concluded as you thought. In fact, he had a contingency plan, if you will, or a vengeful one, where he reveals Spider-Man's identity to the world. And this is delivered via a return of J. Jonah Jameson, played by, what's-his-face, whose name I forgot now for some damn reason. J.K. Simmons, yes. This is like a pop moment, you know what I'm saying? Like, it makes you pop inside. And, of course, they've acknowledged the multiverse, so the idea that, J. Jonah Jameson would look similar here in this universe as it would to another universe is okay. But then just brings up a whole slew of questions, like, why doesn't anybody else look like anybody else in this universe? But whatever. It was fun. Yeah. He's pretty much the great J. Jonah Jameson. I like that they made him look like an Alex Jones type character. That was cool because it allows him to be a lot more aggressively J. Jonah Jameson-esque.
It's actually a lot like, I mean, just from that little clip, a lot like how he was in the game. Mm-hmm. Like, in the game, he's not even with the Bugle anymore. He just has, like, his podcast, and he's raving over and over. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's cool, man. Unless, you like Alex Jones, and I guess you'd be pissed. And or so ignorant because you like Alex Jones that you'd be like, hell yeah, they're repping my boy. Because gotta be a dumbass to think Alex Jones is legit. Anyway, and then, of course, we have the post-credit sequence, which is this reveal that the Skrulls are in cahoots with Fury and Co. I didn't really know what to make of that.
That was a thing.
Yeah, I was like, all right. I mean, I guess it's better than the Black Panther post-credit sequence, right? So
that was such a thing that it only felt to me like this is us just putting it in here that this is why freaking he got fooled.
Yeah.
Or was that supposed to be funny? Like, I don't get it.
I don't know. I don't know where that's going. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Honestly, could have done without that. Then again, at the same time, yes, the whole movie thinking, man, fucking Nick Fury's an idiot in this shit.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's good in a way.
Maybe that was a last minute thing. Like, man,
saves face a little bit.
He's kind of a fool, isn't he?
Complete fool, just saying. But, so yeah, man, this is a mixed bag for me to the max. Any final thoughts before you give your score on a scale of 1 to 10 relative to the type of film that we're talking about here?
I did kind of like Mysterio, despite everything going against him in my book. But yeah, I mean, it's okay.
And your score, scale 1 to 10?
I think it's like a 6er, or maybe even a 5er.
All right.
That being said, I was never bored, and it was kind of fun. It was just kind of like a really sloppy first half.
Yeah.
And then like the rest, I was able to enjoy it. Even though freaking Peter Parker's got that mad donk and tiny head.
The Mad Dog and Tiny Head edition coming soon.
Dude, and homie got that huge cock. Wait.
Why? Why does he have a cock now?
Huge butt, I meant.
I'm gonna look. It's probably my third least favorite Marvel movie. You know, it's not worse than Iron Man or Black Panther. I'll give it that much. But it's way sloppier than those two movies.
Yeah.
Like Black Panther's a much more organized and linear story. I shouldn't say linear because they're all linear, but it's just a much more well put together story. It's just not a movie that I like.
It's also not very fun to watch.
Yeah, stinky. Iron Man 3 sucks balls, but it's not sloppy, This one's sloppy, careless, and then lazy at times, despite it being, like a spectacle. So that's not good in the end. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not a good thing to be. Like, yeah, look at all this cool shit I'm throwing on the screen, but it's stinky. So man, I don't know what to think. I gotta give it like a fucking 5, man. Just straight down the middle, because I did like some stuff in it.
I do think that it's like a more fun movie than Black Panther. Like, I would rather watch this than Black Panther.
Yeah.
Because I had no fun with Black Panther. This I can turn off my freaking tiny M&M brain and have like some fun with it, because it does look cool, and I like Mysterio even though he's expositio. You're like, dude, I get it. That scene was so long, dude. You're like, we got it.
And man, they went into the nitty gritty too. Yeah. Like, oh, this person took care of this particular facet.
Remember that guy that was in that one scene in Iron Man?
Remember that person that was nowhere? That person contributed too. Yeah, man. I feel bad giving it a 5 because really I want to give it like a 4. But I'm not sure what I gave Iron Man 3 or Black Panther. It might have been a 4, and I don't want to put it on the same level. So I did enjoy it more than those. So I'm just going to play it safe, call it 5, down the middle. It wasn't great. But there was cool stuff in it. Again, I like what they do with the characters. Correction. I like the way they handle the characters in terms of the way they behave and react. It feels very Spider-Man-y, but the rest of it just didn't feel Spider-Man-y. Or even MCU-y. It just felt like a fucking thing that I was watching half the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is this shit? Where does this even belong? Anyway, it was a thing I watched.
It was better than Venom.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong. Fucking League's better than shitting them. I don't know. It is. It is better than Venom.
Venom was like an anti-movie, dude. I wanted to die while I was seeing it.
Yeah,
because I was feeling nothing.
Oh, man.
At least with this one, I was like, this is the thing that's happening, right? And then, like, it got, enjoyable at a certain point. And then there was those moments where I'm like, damn, he's got that big donk and the tiny head and massive body. Whereas with Venom, I was like, this is a movie.
Yeah. It's a movie I saw. Let's just say that. But anyway, tell us what you thought about this movie. Hit like, share, subscribe, and notification buttons. If you liked it, let us know why. Should we rewatch it and reconsider? I mean, we do that anyway, so fuck it. We are gonna eventually, but how soon?
I do like how I think with this one, I'm a little more like, yeah, it's all right. And you're like, boop, stinky.
It's just so much that didn't gel for me.
No, I get it. I get it.
And I really liked the first one. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I didn't go into this going like, hell yeah, it's going to be another first one. I think the stuff that was good in the first one is still good here. It's just the surroundings, the context of it was anus.
I totally get it. And there is a lot of shit where you're like, Fushi.
Yeah.
Soundtrack, everything.
Too much.
Yeah.
Extra as fuck. Anyway, we're out, guys. Hit like, share, subscribe, and those notification buttons. Bye-bye.
Mini M&M.